Okay. So today we are with Jacques Leon from our Writers Roundtable. It's a pleasure to get the chance to sit down and speak to you. How are you today, Jacques?
I'm good. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you, Michael. And I also want to thank my group, Writers Roundtable, for setting this up. This is my first interview, so I'm very excited to be here.
Amazing. So we've tried to do these interviews as a way to sort of get to know the group and introduce each person. And we'll just run through some questions. The first ones are actually from Bernard Pivett's Inside the Actors Studio. So they're just a little kind of warm up. They'll be quite quick fire. And then we'll go into some more sort of questions around your life and your sort of personal history with the arts and things like that. And, I'm sure we'll go off on tangents. I might throw other questions in there that you may not expect, but we'll roll with the punches.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So first of all, Jacques, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word, I think, is bodacious.
Bodacious?
Yeah, a friend of mine is making this brewery, this beer brewery, and he's naming it Bailey's Bodacious Brews. I'm like, that's a great word, bodacious.
I mean, I love Bailey. For someone who may not know, what does bodacious mean?
Bodacious is big, expansive, rich, flavorful, delicious, abundant.
Ooh,
I believe so. Shit. Hope I didn't make it up, but that's my understanding of it.
I like it. I'll buy it. I'll go with. I like bodacious. I'll start using it, and if anyone corrects me, then I'll blame you.
Fine.
Okay, so what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word is viral.
Viral.
Viral. Like, oh, the video went viral. Like, oh, great. It went viral. Sounds like virus.
Yeah, exactly. Like things go viral. That's very interesting, actually. They are very, very similar, aren't they? Virus and viral.
Think about it. It's contaminating everyone else. It's. I don't think it's a pretty word, but you know.
And can't you get a viral infection? Isn't that a thing too? I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that, and that doesn't sound good at all. So yeah, I agree. I don't want anything on mine to go viral.
I'm not fond of it.
Nice. Okay. Good favorite words and least favorite words, bodacious and viral. I get down with those. All right. So what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally, or all three?
What turns me on, I think in all three, in regards to our work, ensembles, not just, I like big cast people, everyone working in sync and in the same rhythm. That's what turns me on. Like seeing that a group of people are making a whole different world, a whole different life. Yeah, that's what it also just wakes me up and it makes me, it energizes me as well.
I like that. I've just had a thought. I'm gonna go live on IG right now, and we can do it with your voice because I think it's picking it up well enough.
Okay.
That way we'll add this video to there afterwards. Just set that up real quick. Okay, so we're live on IG now. Unfortunately, we can't get a video feed for Jacques today. But
that's okay.
We'll hear his soothing voice, his speaker.
Hello, Instagram. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
All right, so we're working our way through Bernard Pivett's questions. We've just asked Jacques what turns him on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally, to which he replied ensemble, group work, big cast. Now, Jacques, what turns you off creatively, emotionally, or spiritually?
What turns me off? when everyone is self-serving, when everyone is just doing things for themselves, for their own selves and no one else, because I don't think our work is meant for that. I think our work is meant for community, and it's meant to reflect. And in order to reflect, you need at least one more person in that. So, that's what, I don't like that. I mean, people like when actors or writers or anyone in this business is just trying to do things for their own needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think when I was interviewed, I answered something similar with ego. There's something about ego and self-serving. I just don't think there's a place for it in the arts. I think like you said, as ensemble turns you on emotionally and spiritually, I think it goes hand in hand with the fact that if anybody is sort of doing it for themselves, they sort of just tend to break up the rhythm and break up what's going on.
I mean, that's not to say that the ego is also important. Like, ego is important in society and in life. Like, you need your ego. It's to survive, because we live in this world. But the ego goes hand in hand with fear of talking to someone, with fear of changing. I think it's a big question, but we can move on.
No, I fully agree with you. I think there's a lot to do with ego and where it has its place. But I agree with that in art, it's best to leave it at the door. All right, yeah, let's move on. So, your favorite curse word, Jacques?
Oh my God. Favorite curse word, I think. Well, it's actually a phrase that an Italian friend taught me, which is so much fun to curse in Italian. He said, he taught me, he rehearsed it with me. He's like, "Non mi fia di cazzare, puttana de cazzo. Sto morto per tutti, cazzo, cosa che tu dici." Which translates, "Don't piss me off, you fucking whore. I am sick and tired of every fucking thing you say."
We get it one more time. We get it one more time in Italian.
Sure. "Non mi fia di cazzare, puttana de cazzo. Sto morto per tutti, cazzo, cosa che tu dici."
I love the way.
It's like you even like, what?
I feel like most of the times when I hear Italians speak, I'm like, are they mad? Did I do something wrong? But that
I
one
don't
there,
know.
knowing what it means and hearing it back, it's classic.
You also want to use your hands.
Yeah.
None of the like, I don't know. There's such a nice rhythm to Italian. It's just, it's so much fun to curse.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I like to indulge in that.
Do you ever use it?
No.
Just
I haven't had the opportunity.
Person who does speak Italian. All right. So, what sound or noise do you love?
What sound or noise do I like? Oh my God. I think that a sea breeze. Sea breeze is probably my favorite noise. It's very soothing for me. Whenever I'm in a town with, it's near the ocean, I can just, it's different than wind. It's just like sizzles through the air and reaches your ear with a little bit of moisture.
It is recommended if you can't sleep, turn on some ocean sounds.
Really? I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sound of rain too. That's one of my probably favorite sounds.
Yeah. And so, what sounds do you hate?
When the shrill of fear, like the nervous shrill when when something really scary is gonna happen. You're like, "Ah!" It's kind of like that sound. I hate doing it and I hate hearing it, but sometimes I do it because I get scared watching a scary movie. Sometimes I'm like, "Ah!" I just can't like, it's a turn off. I don't know.
But, but okay, so what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
If I had to do something else, I'd probably, interesting. I think I would probably go into like either carpentry or owning a pub.
Mm.
I think I would love to own a pub. I think that owning a pub is so much fun, and I've also worked years on the service industry, and I don't know. I feel like if I had the ability to do it, I would make it a very special place.
I like the community that pubs end up bringing in, and the sort of, you get to know your locals, and I feel like it ends up kind of becoming a big open house for people, and
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would
Well, I
love.
mean, it's pubs are public houses, so it's and alcohol, of course, with moderation is a bringing it brings in people, and it's a factor that relaxes you. And obviously, if you do too much of it, it's a mess. But it's I don't know. I think it's fun, and it could be a fun environment.
Okay, and what profession would you not like to do?
What profession would I like not to do? Lawyer.
Lawyer?
I would not want to be a lawyer.
You mean like criminal law, or any kind of
Any type
law?
of law. My God, like all you do is just like live in an office. And I mean, I'm sure there are many people out there that love being an attorney, and God bless them. But I don't have the patience to do that. No, honestly, I don't. I respect it, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. All right, and if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you as you reached the pearly gates?
Um, I think I thought of this, not for this, but I've always think about what Robert De Niro's answer was. He got a lot of explaining to do. Um, but I don't know. I think I would. I think last chance. Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think maybe. I think that if he gives me like, you know, a bit like he'd be like making me a deal. Like, listen, you can come in now, or you can go back for like a few more years, but with the caveat that you cannot say anything to anyone.
Would you do it?
We'll have to see.
I guess it's one of those questions, kind of like you're a bit young, you're a bit too young to answer the question of, if you could go back, would you do another life? Because I feel like at this age, everyone would be like, yeah, give me another life. I'd love that. But when you hit 90 or 100 and you've done a lot of years, you may not feel the same.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course I would like to I wouldn't want to live on another life, heavens no, but I'd rather hey, you have a couple more years left. You can use them or you can come in now. I'm like, I think I would go back and use them, and live very, very happily for the following years and just be, you know, quiet and content.
That's admirable. I think there's a lot of people who might get to that position, just be like, hell no, I'm coming in.
Well, I mean, it's not, I don't blame them,
Yeah.
to be honest.
By the time we get there, 2020 would have passed. And some positive silver lining might come from all of this.
Oh, of course. And I think that a lot of good things are happening, especially in this time. Yes, it's tumultuous and people are in fear constantly, but I think it's because it's for a reason. And I think and I think the world's going to get better.
Beautiful, beautifully said. So let's dive into a little bit about you, Jacques.
Yeah.
Where did this journey as an artist sort of start from you? Where did it all begin?
Um, well, aside from school plays when I was a child, I decided to be an actor when I was 16. And I moved to New York City at the age of 20. And yeah, I kind of just made my life. It's a broad answer, but when I was 20 years old, I had a housing problem. I didn't have a place to stay, and I was, I guess you could say I was homeless for a night. And in that night, I happened to come across Zahid's school, Lee Strasberg, and I met a group of his friends on that night that I was homeless. And, and they were like, so like, where are you staying? Like, oh no, I don't really have a place to stay. And they were like, well, what do you mean? What are you doing here? I'm like, no, I'm waiting for, at that time I had resolved that I was waiting for a friend, to let me sleep on his couch. And yeah, that's how my journey began. Like one night just being homeless and then starting my life at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute.
Hmm. And did you find sort of going through those hardships, how did sort of art and that connection help you through that? Was it an automatic release, or was it something that sort of you found after a while that you just sort of relied on it to get through? Was it something obvious to you?
I will confess that at first when you're young and you're passionate and you have all this fire in you, it's very easy to get emotional and lose your I guess lose track of what's in front of you. I think that at first I was introduced to a whole world of vulnerability and teachings of what it is to be completely raw and allow the impulses to come out. And so I had to survive. In order to survive, I had to kind of like numb that. I had to numb away the artistic side for a while. And I didn't have a chance to do any sort of artistic endeavor like for years. I had to like work in a bar or in a restaurant to make ends meet. But I think of it as a well-deserved break, and in doing so, it taught me how to be a better person, I think.
And
And
so
it
you
pushed away. Go ahead.
no, please, no, finish. So,
It pushed away my ego for and I didn't want to. I didn't want to like let go of my emotional attachment to the theater. I had to let it go. Um, yeah, I learned a lot from that experience.
and so you're in New York now. Have you always been a New York City kid? Is that where you grew?
Well, I grew up I was born in Los Angeles. I was raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And when I was 20, I moved to New York. Um, yeah, and I'll be 30 in September, so almost 10 years.
Wow. And do
Yeah.
you find a huge sort of I mean, difference in cultures for sure, but can you really feel a difference between those locations, LA, Buenos Aires, and New York?
Oh, absolutely. I think that if I would have stayed in Los Angeles, I wouldn't be in the film industry. I'd probably be doing
Owning
something
a
else.
pub.
I have no idea.
Owning a pub in
Maybe,
there.
maybe, or try to follow my father's footsteps and being a doctor, but that didn't happen. Um, yeah, no. And then I moved to Buenos Aires when I was like a teenager. I had lived there, as a child. My dad traveled a lot. Um, and I grew up there in Buenos Aires for a couple of years. So yeah, it was definitely a culture shock, um, definitely. And but it's given me the experiences of different cultures in different parts of the world, and I'm just thankful to be here now.
We're gonna take a question that's come in on Instagram Live.
Cool.
Jump forward. Um, this one is from Sridu. I hope I said that right. Sridu. Um, do you think sorrow is a source to pen down stories? Does it become an instrument to express sorrow?
Oh, sorrow. One more time the question.
Do you think sorrow is a source to pen down stories? Does it become an instrument to express?
Become an interest to express. I
So
think that
yeah.
no, I think that if well, I think that it depends. I mean, that's always the cop out question, the cop out answer. Oh, it depends on what you want to tell. But if that is what motivates you, the question is, what's behind the sorrow? What is the life that causes the sorrow? Because the sorrow is a bit of a result-oriented emotionality. Sorrow. It could be coming from different things, different parts of life. I think that the provocation of sorrow is what should be put on stories, because that's where people learn from the cause of sorrow.
I guess it's sort of emotions are a good place to start to dive deeper.
Oh, absolutely.
But we can't
Yeah, no,
necessarily an emotion to write something because there needs to be a deeper layer behind what we're going to discuss when we sit down to write something.
and in order to get to that deep level, which I agree completely, when you get specific, when you start becoming much more detailed as to the small little things that these characters are wanting, doing, which could be different, and how they get to the place that they are, that causes sorrow, um, that makes them be in sorrow. It's not necessarily, maybe something else has caused it, and now they're suffering the aftermath and what they're responding to. But yes, I do think that sorrow is always a great, motivator to want to write something. But as long as you know why you're doing it, or what's the cause, or concentrating on I guess the simple life of it, because in order for anyone to feel connected to any piece of work, they have to relate to it. They have to feel that, oh, I've seen that in my life too, or at least I've seen it in my neighbor in some way. I
Hmm.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does, and actually going on from that, um, what where do you think that benefits others? Because of course, it's cathartic to write out what you're feeling. What is it? What's the importance of writing to others? Individually, but also on a society level. Where does art and specifically writing, have its importance?
I think that in order to put those two together, I think that society does something, and then art asks questions about that something. Because it's not really interesting when you see a resolved, like when you get an answer for something. It's not about the answer. It's about what it's causing, what it's provoking, what or what it or what that something has done to the people, and how those people live because of that something. Yeah, I'm not sure if I guess my simple answer to that would be, as long as we keep raising questions, there art in society will always be one and one.
And so we have another question that's coming from Instagram.
Okay.
I'll read out the comment, but then I think I'll just sort of ask the question, more from from a question that personally, your personal opinion on something. So the comment is, I've seen many authors who have dived directly from a central plot and not the beginning, and that has been a process for them. And this has become both critically acclaimed and, a commercial story. When you're writing, where do you like to start, or what has your journey been so far? Do you tend to know your beginning through to your end, or do you sort of start with something that you want to talk about and then flush the whole thing out from there? How's it been for you with your writing?
Well, my first question that I ask myself is, it's technical, but it helps me plenty. I ask myself, how could I fit the story in one sentence? How could I, from beginning to end in no less than, maybe 2 sentences, but I rather just keep it to one. What story do I want to tell? Like, for example, one of my favorite log lines is, a robot from the future goes to the past to save a rebellion from a robot apocalypse. Guess what? Can you guess what movie that is?
Terminator.
That's right, Terminator. Or like a grandiose ship crossing the Atlantic falls to the bottom of the ocean by one piece of ice. Titanic. Like all those small little, like, funny little summarized sentences that really is a challenge for me, because right now I'm just before this, I was with a friend. He's in Mexico, and we're talking dialogue because my script is written in English, but most of the dialogue is in Spanish. And my log line is a journey from the southern borders of the States to New York City, seen by the eyes of different immigrants on the same path. So it talks about different people with different perspectives, and it talks about how each immigrant, each person has as much life as anyone in the United States, anyone in the world, and who have this huge obstacle, which is getting to their destination illegally in this country. So obviously I'm making a comment towards society, but I try not to concentrate it. I don't concentrate on, what society has to say about, I like to concentrate on the life that is affected by the society.
And I think that's what we really, at the end of the day, connect to. As much as as much as that is a great log line for Terminator, and I think in a pitch that would suck anyone in. Really, when we watch that, we want to know, why, how is Sarah Connor going to survive this?
Right.
Like how is she going to, and how is Reese, how are these two humans going to overcome this machine that just won't stop? And we also, connect to the character of the Terminator, because it's like, wow, this thing has no emotions, will just keep going and doesn't feel anything. And those characters are what pull us in. So as much as the logline is great and feeds the whole franchise, it does come down to
Yeah.
the characters in that particular movie that really we connect to, and that keep us interested from start to finish. It's like Forrest Gump. If Forrest Gump wasn't so lovable, we would just be watching a story about a guy who sort of gets pulled into situations and doesn't have much control over what happens. But
Right.
we root for Forrest because we love him. We love
Yeah.
who he is. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, the characters are very, very key to, and really should be put at the front of any storytelling.
Right. No,
Okay.
yeah, it's
No, please, you have a
no,
thought.
I have nothing else to say. Go right ahead.
Okay, cool. So you trained at Strasbourg.
Yes. I trained at Strasbourg. I first started training acting in Buenos Aires, and their approach was very methody, very methody. It's a bit derogatory saying that, but it's method, and it's. Here's the thing. I went to a method school when I first started, and then I went to the method school when I went to New York City, and I'm sick of it. I am so sick of the method because I feel that, yes, the tools are very important and they can help you get out of your head and they can help you relax, which is great. But it shouldn't control you. I don't think it should control, like, okay, now I need to do rain, 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 rain. I get it. It's nice. Rain is very soothing and it can help you. Um, I just think that, if too many rules are constricting you, then it kind of like makes you, it could suffocate you. And that was my experience, artistically speaking. Personally, I know that the method has worked wonderfully for many actors, and you know, and I still love the school that I went to. I guess technically speaking, on a technical acting uh, point, I think that impulses have a lot of good value, and I think that the impulse that every person has the ability to push you forward and to take you and to trust yourself also. If you cultivating all these great tools, then you're depending on these tools instead of depending on yourself and what your first impression is and what and what comes to mind when you read something. I think
I
I think
agree.
that's
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that techniques are great to sort of get you there, and methods are great to get you there, but you have to choose whatever's going to excite you. That's the most important thing. And like you say, whatever you pull from the page and whatever works is often the best, foot to step forward with.
mhm.
And we had a question come in asking about what your thoughts are on the Meisner technique, which actually is very impulse driven. Have you ever studied Meisner or used it?
I've used it, and I haven't had the chance to study with any teacher from Meisner, but I did have one teacher who was like a mixture of method and Meisner. It was a good combination. My favorite exercise is the repetition exercise. I think it's great because you don't have to worry about anything, only the person in front of you.
And I think a
It's
lot,
like,
yeah, I think a lot of great acting comes from that. It's you can do all of the script work and you can know exactly what is happening in the scene, but to feed that when you're in the moment, to feed all of that, to give you the energy you need, you have to take it off the partner in front of you. And that's where I think my pretty genius that with that technique is that you are focusing on, okay, how do I just follow impulses, read what's in front of me, and allow that to affect me, and honestly, when you're on stage or when you're in front of camera, that's all you have sometimes is just what you can gain from the other person. Because yeah, like you said, you can follow all these methods, but if on the day they're not working for you, the sure shot way is to just be there in the moment with that person who's in front of you and respond accordingly to them.
Yeah. I think I've found much more. I found it much more rewarding to suddenly do that. And actually, an experience this, in acting class, when something goes awry or something doesn't go as planned, and you're still working at it, you can kind of go into repetition. That's what a teacher taught me. Like, let's just say I forget a line, and then you, Michael, you look at me and you're like, "You forgot?" Like, yeah, I forgot. You forgot. Yeah, I forgot. And then you can go back if you remember. Or if you remember your place. No, I think that the the more simple, the better.
Yeah, which I think comes back to also what you were saying about log lines and things like that. At the end of the day, simplifying, I think, is the aim of the game, because I think most artists can theorize for days. We're great at it, but if we can simplify down, if we can really you know get our thoughts down to one line, one sentence, then we're on to something, because then we sort of have this anchor point to keep everything going back to, and we know exactly what we're talking about at that point. Whereas otherwise, if asked the question of, well, what do you want to talk about in this film, there's 1,000 things we probably all want to talk about. But if we get specific,
Yeah.
if we simplify, well, we're going to be on to something.
I think that the phrase "a picture is worth 1,000 words." I think it should be added: "A simple picture is worth 1,000 words."
Yeah, that's true. Because it's easy to pull 1,000 words from a picture that's got 1,000 things going on in it. But
Right.
really, what we want to do is we want to look at one key thing, love, misery, and we want to pull apart what that is and how many different shades of that color we can get out. Which I think is, the great thing about the story that you're writing is that we're looking at a story, a story of immigration, but we're seeing it through the lens of multiple people. And like we were talking about characters, that's what draws people in, is what's happening to this person, not what's happening to every person who's going through immigration, because you can't tell that story in one go, but you can
No.
tell you know this character and what they're going through, and we can fall in love with that character, and we can learn something from that character, which I think
Hmm.
is, as writers, that's really what we're always aiming for, is to learn something ourselves and pass that on.
Right. It's No, I absolutely agree. And I guess and this is referring to the person that asked about sorrow. I think that if you talk about more of the character, like you shouldn't be like, my story is about immigration and people immigrating and trying to get to their place. I'm not talking about that ever. I never talk about the act of immigrating. I may talk about, there's one like instance where a character is like, well, we're in the fucking desert, but it's more about them in that situation than the actual trip. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you keep it specific and simple to the character, and also, like, I think sometimes I surprise myself when I'm writing a character, like, holy shit, like, this person is so much better than me, in almost in every capacity. It's like, God in heaven. But that's because they were inspired by people who I met in my life and people who I thought were incredibly brave.
And I think also inspired by your virtues. We don't always get to be that person that we would like to be 24/7. It's difficult being a human, but that's one joy of writing is that we get to sit down, and when we write that hero character, we can really write
Mhm.
the hero that we believe deserves the story.
Right.
Um, yeah. So moving on a bit away from the sort of
Yeah.
artist actor side, why have you chosen film? Why is film the sort of medium for you?
Honestly, I chose film because before I was just an actor and I could never, ever, ever get hired. Um, you
Classic.
know, yeah, it's literally that, and I found it so much more rewarding. I'm still an actor, I'm still, if someone wants to hire me, or if some project comes my way, then yeah, sure. But writing has given me so much more than acting, and it also made me just a more direct artist. I think. I don't think that. Yeah, I think I'm much more like focused and concentrated because I have to be. Um, so that's how I came to do it. Yeah, and I love it.
Do you have aspirations to write in other forms? Novels or even plays?
I could. Um, I'm. I used to write lots of poetry when I was in high school, and I used to. Um, yeah, I used to write like little short plays here and there. Um, yeah, writing is definitely one of my long term um, career that I'm going to have in my life. You know, something that I'm want to do in my life, and that's not entirely just doing film. I want to open a school one day, and I want to have my own place, somewhere in the woods, and have my own place where I can, where we can cultivate artists, where we can cultivate art, dance, film.
So we're not
It's
talking we're not talking traditional sort of education system school. We're talking sort of like a retreat for artists.
it will be, I don't know. It's something in the future. It's something that I want to do later in my life. But it's gonna be a place where at least over a year conservatory, um, but different though. Instead of just having artistic classes, every one of my students will have to go to a business class and learn contracts and learn law a little bit, just a little bit, just so you can get your, so you feel more secure on the ground that you're standing on, and not being dependent on people giving you work or giving you opportunities. That's bullshit. Um, I think that objective of mine came from being a very young and frustrated artist, and I was like, God, I wish I can go to a school that can just teach me everything.
Well, I mean, that's a very fair point because a lot of acting schools and things will do a business class, but they'll cover sort of how to get an agent, what the agent
Right.
what kind of cut they're going to take, or what contracts they talk, and all these things. But actually, there's so much more to surviving as an artist than just finding someone to represent you and do work. I mean, even as a writer, you can build a career by doing a lot of copyright for things for free and sending them into companies and just proving that you can write and landing jobs that way. But we don't learn these things at school. We just learn how to find the middleman who will find us work, but it doesn't always work that way.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I agree with you. I don't agree with that itself. I think that, yeah, we will learn like the bare bones of what it is to be an actor in society, when in fact we know nothing. One day I almost got duped into signing a contract, and then I'm like, wait, I have to pay you to represent me? It was one of those. And I was like, and they're like, yeah, do you disagree? Like, yes, I disagree. And I just walked out of there and I was like, oh my God, I dodged a bullet, but I didn't have to, you know?
Yeah. Which for any aspiring actors watching, you should never pay someone just to represent you. It should always be on the basis of the work that you book that they get you. You should never be
Right.
paying an agent, money just to find work for you. That's a no-go.
Right. And I understand the desperation of actors. I get it. It's awful. But I think that a solution for that anxiety is to make yourself better in a different way. I have many actor friends that are really good at editing, really good at music, they're really good at post production or even pre production. They do everything, and I think that's what actors should do. They should be able to do everything and learn everything. That's, of course, that's within their parameters of what they want to do.
I think it's fun. I think as actors, one thing that we all are great at and that we love doing is learning. We love learning about the role that we're taking. We love learning about the character and what they're saying and what their journey is. And I think that, yeah, you're 100% right. If we can make ourselves useful within our industry in many ways, it fills up all that time of when am I going to get the role, and
Hmm.
just like we set up the writers roundtable so that we have weekly meetings, to discuss work and read work and, keep
Right.
each other inspired. I've done, groups where we've met up and we've read plays and we've just acted out scenes and we picked apart dialogue and talked about it. And I think that the more you can keep yourself fresh and the more you can, continue to explore and learn new things, yeah, you're gonna do better for it. You're gonna stay on your toes, and then when you are thrown into that audition or that scene,
Hmm.
you're not gonna feel like it's been a very long time since you do it, which is important for your happiness as much as it is for your actual craft.
No, I completely agree. Um, yeah, and if you don't want to learn anything new, then it's probably time for you to learn something from yourself. As in, if there's something if you feel like, oh, I don't want to do this thing, then it's probably because there's something within you that is not resolved. And now I'm getting like, deep in the psyche of the artist. But
Socrates did, Socrates did say the first thing to know is that you know nothing at all, and
yeah,
it's I agree. I think once you get to that point where you feel frustrated with what you're doing, or um, there's a lack of inspiration, that's time to look inwards and see, okay, well, what's the problem? Because I did once love this thing, and I did once love doing it. Why do I no longer enjoy it? And then like you said, there's something to learn.
yeah, it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. It's gonna, happen to a lot of people, and some people don't, get out of that, which is the worst part, which I think is worse than death. You're stuck in this limbo of like hatred and pride and ego and like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I had that once in an acting class. The drama teacher said to me, "What do you fear the most?" you know and I said, to no longer want to do the thing that I want to do. And he didn't understand it. He ridiculed me. He was like, but if you no longer want to do the thing you want to do, you don't want to do it anymore. And he sort of blew it out. And I was like, oh. But I still stand by it. I think it is, it's a worry that you get 10, 20 years deep into something and then you
Hmm.
suddenly realize, wait, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think it's the bigger problem is thinking that you've hit that brick wall, is thinking that you made the wrong choice instead of
Right.
having, the knowledge, like you said, to, okay, well, now let me go inside and figure out, why do I feel this way? Because you chose to do it for a reason.
And there's a reason for that. And that's, I'm sorry, and that reason is your body telling you, is your body giving yourself a parameter, You know, it's the same thing as being angry. When you're angry, it's because you want something to stop.
Yep.
No, like I'm putting a wall here. No, and that's actually a good thing because you're setting a boundary. You're making your own space for yourself. Anyways, let's move on before we forget
You're right.
ourselves.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about film. Who are your inspirations? Well, you know, where not just who, but what inspires you?
Um, what inspires me are the stories of outsiders, and that comes from my own perception of always feeling like an outsider, you know. And when I'm in the States, I'm Argentinian. When I'm in Argentina, I'm an American, you know. And it's I've never, and these are the two places that I, you know, usually frequent. So I've never really felt, you know, part of something. So what inspired me from film and acting and theater was the sense of community. That's why ensemble is my favorite word, because you're a part of something more than you. Also, it's something that's more that, you know, something a bit more important, I think.
Do you feel like you can spot an outsider from a mile away?
Um, I don't really look for that, but the the surprise is when you think someone belongs, but they don't feel that way. You know, when someone feels like, yeah, no, I'm at a place, you know, but they're they don't seem like it. I think that that's something that happens to almost everyone. I'm sure, in some capacity. Everyone at one point becomes the outsider.
Hmm. And what? Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask what, you know, what is it? Well, yeah, I'll ask anyway. What does being an outsider mean to you? How do you define that?
Um,
Or furthermore, why is that so interesting to you?
well, it's interesting because because they're working towards feeling accepted or belonging, and at the same time of doing that, they're also learning of new things constantly. Um, and also, what's interesting to me is how lonely an outsider can be, which is interesting when you're lonely. It really changes you. You know, being alone in a room in the middle of Queens. That's where I lived at one point. I had my first year here. I was so alone. I had no friends. I had no one to talk to. My parents were in you know, halfway across the world. Like I could barely hold a job. Um, I moved 6 times in my first year. It was brutal, but I learned a lot from it, and I learned a lot about myself too.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's a funny one being alone because you sort of reach a point where you kind of don't know how to be anything but you still have this big sort of void. You know, I don't think anyone wants to be alone, but at the same time, I feel like we all kind of have to go through it at some point so that we get to know ourselves. Because if we become too reliant on other people, that causes all kind of problems. You know,
Which is
we
why
don't.
I also like, family so much. Family to me is also huge. All of my characters have family. All my characters have family. Everything is always family. It will never get boring. Family will always give you the dynamic of what you want and what's good for the family. and what that person says about the family, but really they're trying to do something else. You know, it's like The Sopranos. So to me, it's about family. The Godfather, it's about family in some sick, twisted way. Succession, the HBO TV show. Oh my God, it's insane. They're nuts, but they accept each other, which is insane. And when they have another new person come in, they kind of, in a weird way, kind of like surround that new person, which is what happened in there's this one scene where they hire a therapist to talk to them, to have family therapy. And I don't want, spoiler alert, he gets hurt so badly that he can't even talk, the therapist. You know, and I think the writing of that show is so brilliant that one of the other characters says Freud would have had a field day, which is the truth, though. It's just like, my God. Anyways, reverting back to family. Yeah, I think that family will always feed for people that don't have families and for people that do.
No, I couldn't agree more. I remember the first time I read Long Day's Journey into Night.
Oh,
And
man.
yeah, and that was pretty close to the first time that I read Death of a Salesman. And I realized just how much, family, the way you're raised and things you experience in your family shape you. And then I couldn't see anything else but it. I could see all the little things that I didn't like about myself forming from these moments or these characteristics that I'd learned from family, as well as, all the things that I love about myself and all the things that I'm grateful for fed back to family, because it really is amazing how we grow to a certain age and believe that we're individual in a sense of like believed we just formed, right? Believed we just
Mm-hmm.
became something without understanding that there's a big history behind why we act and why we view things the way that we do, very, very specifically, but without any form of this is why I love acting training, because I think it really does teach you that you have to learn these things, because without it, you do live in this kind of ignorance of just, well, the way that I think is the way everyone thinks, which is not true and very dangerous.
Right. That's exactly right. You know, you're this permutation of what a person wants to create, i.e., parents, and you go out in the world and it's no, it's not nothing like that. No, I completely agree with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll wrap up
Okay.
because we're going towards an hour. But there is one last question I want to ask you, a bit of a fun one. If you had a superpower, what would it be, Jacques?
If I had a superpower, what would it be? Um, it pro- it would I used to like to be like invisible
Ah,
when
that's fine.
when I was younger, like, and I love reading Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, so I just love, Lord of the Rings. Um, but I think that I don't think it's more invisibility. It's hiding in plain sight that I think is the best. So camouflage, chameleon abilities to
So
morph
that
myself into anything and everything.
so that you can be unseen until the moment that you want to be.
Exactly. I think that, whereas invisibility, it's like, it's a bit, it's a bit more strange. There's a different connection. Whereas I don't want to be seen, but I want to be here. I don't know if that's how I think it's a little different, but it's almost the same thing.
I get you. I get you. It becomes a bit of like a psychoanalysis question where you're sort of asking yourself, why do I want to be invisible? why is that the superpower I choose? What's my social problem that I can't be seen by people? But actually that, for me that was the one for the longest. And I realized I want to be invisible because I want to know how people act and how they are when they know that I'm not watching them or they're not being around. But I started
Yeah.
to realize that there might be borderline creepy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's okay. I mean, I think everyone is a little creepy as long as you don't, overindulge in, the feelings of, we're human beings. I think that what we do define us, and what we think. That's all I thought.
I agree. No, I do. I definitely agree. Well, Jacques, one of the reasons why I love, sort of sitting down with you each week and doing the Writers Roundtable is because I think you have a great empathy. You're very empathetic and you have this great capacity for humanity, which is why I'm always really interested to see what you're going to say and what you're going to write. Because when it comes to writing about people, I think you're in the right place because you want to understand the individual, and that's why I will always find whatever input you have on anything that I've wrote or anyone else has is very valuable. So it's been great speaking to you. I'm really glad we could do this.
Michael, thank you so much, and thank you for all the listeners out there, and thank you for the questions. Really, like I had no idea I was going to get any questions, so it made this interview very special. And yeah, please tune in for some more news from the Writers Roundtable.
All right, Jacques, great speaking to you. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, man. Cheers.
Bye.